I just have finished my summer camp today and I am heading out for a lunch and to meet my American friend who have been living in China for I think for about 3 months, almost 3 months as of now. So you'll get to meet her as well, and you'll get to see what she thinks about China and everything like that. We're currently at the older parts of Incheon town, and that's why the building looks older and less modern and contemporary in comparison to my area.
What I and my associates did was take the brain circuits from your dead body. We stored them in electrochemical batteries until we had a chance to rebuild the cities and begin our quest.
You think I believe it? A fantastic tale like that?
I imagine you find it incredible.
Place where Dana is usually eating with the family that she is living with, which is very, very beautiful. Let me show you. So this is Dana.
Hi.
Is that how I pronounce your name?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So we're currently having a lunch. She has been here for about 3 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she reached out to me through couch surfing, and we have been hanging out since then. Not really. I mean, like, this is our third meetup actually, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, around that time. And I think it would be interesting for you to hear about her story being in China. So would you be comfortable enough to introduce yourself and tell about the story, or should you?
Sure.
Yeah? Yeah, tell about yourself.
So, as she said, I came to China a couple months ago. I'm just kind of getting over the whole culture shock and adjustment period, thankfully. But with doing a lot of research with that, I kind of knew what to expect, and I knew that I wanted to extend my time, even though that I was going through that. I knew it wasn't going to last forever.
Right. So I think it's interesting for everyone to know, like, what do you do here? Because in my case, I do teach as an English teacher. Meanwhile, Dana is doing something else that is also interesting.
I live with a family. It's more of a cultural
exchange.
Yeah, yeah, it's more of a cultural exchange.
Yeah, if you thank you. So it's, if you may have heard about au pair, yeah, in which you usually stay with the family and for a certain period of time, and then you actually basically exchanging cultures, technically, because you live with them in day-to-day life. But also Dana is also helping the son of this family to actually learn English. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah, he's 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I have been au pairs in other houses too, so this is kind of just like a doorway to something else.
True. So this is not the first time of your experience being an au pair, right?
This is my third or fourth? My fourth?
Yeah. So I think it's nice to also hear about the culture shock, because everyone that comes to China and live here would actually eventually at some point, I think in the 3rd month or 2nd month, it starts to get like something. So yeah, why don't you share a little bit like how it felt and how it started, and because now you say that you're feeling better. So.
Yeah, it's a lot different now. Everything that was different, I couldn't understand.
And annoys you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't comprehend why things were done a certain way, or just why things were different. It just seemed unorganized, which is a leading effect of culture shock. You don't understand how it's organized.
True. I mean, Diana is also a traveler. I mean, like, she has traveled to different countries, so this is not the first country that she is living apart from her own country. But it's something different about China, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. And when I first left, I went to Eastern Europe, which was still a lot. It's still different than the USA.
A lot of similarity in terms of how people do things in day-to-day life. But in China, they have their own civilization. Yeah,
it's sometimes I just like look around. It's like, wow, I'm on a different planet.
Yeah, totally.
It's just so different. Everything is so different.
So in specific, like, what sort of things that annoy you the most? Because I've heard, like, because the last time when we met, she shared how, like, because usually Chinese people, the way they talk, it's like yelling. And the first time I was here, I was like asking most of the time to my coworkers, are they like fighting to each other? Because they seem to be like angry to each other, but in this, I mean, like, they're not, because basically this is just how they speak to and talk to each other. Yeah.
There was that kind of got to me. And then also in the United States, it's just like an unspoken rule that we all have kind of like a bubble. Sure. And there's even people who, like, if you go into your bubble, it's like, I'm annoying you, I'm annoying you. But here it's a stranger will just come right up to you and sit right next to you and have your legs touch each other, you know.
I think I mentioned that in one of other videos, that it has come to the society. Chinese people, Chinese in general as a society, they're more a lot as a commune society in which they are so used to living together. There's no space for individuality.
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, in the US, a lot of individual space and anything is very taken into account, and it's very like considerably as a rude thing if you like cross the boundaries. Someone else. Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, because in my culture in Indonesia, we're pretty much still Asian.
That's the kid.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Let me show you a little bit about the food. That looks legit. Looks like a legit food, and and that one, let me show.
Eggplant.
Oh, that's the eggplant?
Yeah.
I thought, oh wow, that looks a lot better in real life. And that's the tea that we're having. I think you want to touch on individuality topic. I think would be important,
Because in the United States, you had kind of just said that it was very different, and in the United States, especially recently, there's something going on that individuality is most desired. You know, being a strong, independent woman, or man, or child, you know, anything. And here, it's quite the opposite, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. It's just difference in culture, and I think a lot of people who are travelers are also very independent. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why China has a little bit of a bad stigma. Because you really, like, through the whole culture shock and period of adjustment, I had to really wrap my head around respecting that it's a completely different culture. And I could, now I feel like I accept it and I respect it.
Yeah, I totally understand. Sorry that I could see the differences, the different tone right now, and then the last time we met. The last time we met, she was like, oh my god, she was, you could see, but I'm so happy. And then yes, sorry, you were saying.
I was not in a good place.
It's important for everyone to be able, actually it's a privilege for us to be able to experience that. I mean, you have been living in some other countries as well. Meanwhile, this is my first time. But also at the same time, we also experienced the things that you didn't experience in other countries.
Yeah.
And I've heard that if you can survive China, you pretty much can survive anywhere in the world, and I think that's true. Right?
I haven't heard that one, but I can definitely see how that would be plausible.
Yeah. I told her the first time we met that, don't worry, 3 months gonna be like just like that, and she was like, yeah, you're right. And now she has extended the contract with the family to what, 9 months, yeah?
Yeah.
So she'll be here until next year, so yeah.
And I just want to say, having lived with a family, 4 different families without ever meeting them, do it. Like, it's a huge jump off of a cliff, and you don't know where you're going to land.
Moving to China by itself, it already is. Let alone living with a family, yeah.
It definitely, you have to make sacrifices because you are living in somebody's house, you know.
True.
I don't stay out past 10. True. You know, there's things like that. Like
the space. That's what we were also talking about in the last meetup that we had. That I don't need to worry about what time should I be going home. But I do understand that feeling because I have been also surfing or living with a host throughout my time using couchsurfing, and I do understand that I have to respect someone else's time and schedule to come back home. And yeah, so sometimes it can be like a little bit like pain in the ass, right?
Yeah, but then at the same time, it's like these people are opening their house to me, and I arrived at very late at night, and the next morning they said, you're in our family now, you're one of us, make yourself at home, do whatever you want, if you need anything, ask, you know. And that's the best welcoming committee to anywhere I've ever been, you know, is to have a family that's just accepting you, and you help their child, so they want to give that back, you know. It's just an amazing relationship, it really is. But space, you have to keep your space. And the first time I au paired, I think I was about 6 months in, I had a total breakdown. Something was not right, something was bad, and I figured out that I just needed to take time for myself because I just loved the family so much that even on my days off I would go do fun things with them. But I needed me
space,
me
time, of course.
Yeah, so now I know that, you know, I have my 2 days off a week, and I separate myself.
I don't have 2 days off. I don't have 2 days off these days anyway. Yeah.
But you have a home that you can go home to, like of your own. That's different.
True. The definition of and that takes a while. I mean, like when I was traveling for 5 months on the road, I didn't have that home base, and it creates such anxiety. I mentioned that in some other video, how it is nice to have a set of home base that you can come home to. Even, I mean, like, okay, in Indonesia I do have a house, but it's my parents' house, even though it's also my home. But it's also really extremely nice to have my own space as of now. Like, I can totally do what I want. I can set my schedule and then be organized with my own pace without having to actually sacrifice my own space or having to compromise anything.
It's a different lifestyle for sure.
True. That's why it's interesting to actually brought that up. But what is the differences living with Chinese family in comparison to other family?
It's really different that this family doesn't speak English, which makes a culture immersion even more, you know. That's a pretty awesome thing.
It's a struggle thing on a day-to-day basis, yeah?
It's a struggle sometimes. I have a translator app on my phone, and we actually can have like a really good conversation about like something pretty deep. But then at times it's just like we need to say something fast, everything's in movement, you know, and we have to kind of like take a couple minutes and go through the translator app, and if, you know, it's not 100% always, so there'll have to be corrections. So that
especially the translation can be funny.
Yeah,
a lot of times the translation can be funny. Like, I know.
Yeah, there has been some time, like just a couple months ago, a couple weeks ago, I was learning how to play Chinese chess, and he was explaining to me with a translator how to do it. I've never laughed so hard. Like with the bad translations, it was phenomenal. It's quite a great amusement these days.
So the other family that you've been lived with, it's mostly, it was throughout Europe, was it? Or in...
There was one in Europe, one in Eastern Europe, one in Iceland, and one in Minnesota in the United States.
Right, yeah, so technically their exposure to English are a lot higher, yeah, than Asian people.
In the Czech Republic in Europe, the dad spoke English, the mom didn't, and the kids didn't really, and it was my job to teach the 2-year-olds.
But at least
twins.
one person speaks English, and it really helps a lot for you to be able to communicate, to interact.
Absolutely, and it's also good for just like overall health. Yeah. Because I feel like now, sometimes when I find somebody who speaks English, it's just like, and I tell them everything.
That's why she wants to make me all the time.
There's been one time where I would call my mom on Skype, and I think she might have said like 10 words, and I just talked for 4 hours. It was like, okay. She's just like working, and I don't even know if she's even listening.
I think she understood. Yeah. Totally.
It's awesome to have you actually speak really good English. It's really awesome.
Thank you. That's really nice to hear.
The living situations are similar. They have similarities and they also have differences because, like, when I was in Minnesota, I was working on a farm. Like, they had a farm and they had a 2-year-old boy, and that was very different compared to here, you know. But I also feel like there are a lot of similarities because families who invite somebody into their home are, for the most part, I think that they would be like very open-minded, and they also are very comfortably financially.
Yeah.
So there's similarities between that. Like it's luxurious.
Yeah,
you know?
Of course, because
it's luxurious.
For a family to even allow their space for strangers is one thing, and let alone this family funded your trip, right? I mean, like, also my own company also funded my trip, but it was for work thing. But this one is for family cultural exchange, and also for their own specific kids. So it's like exclusively, right? So of course, especially Chinese people. I mentioned that Chinese people are rich. Like extravagant, like in small cities like this, most of the time people have cars everywhere, and they would spend money on food pretty much easily, and things like that. They're pretty much well off. Not all, but majority of people in China.
I find that there's a bit of a gap between the rich and the not so rich.
Yeah, of course, and even in Indonesia, I have a very, very large as well.
It's not so big in the U.S. I'd say. There's more
because
of
most of
ground base.
Yeah, because most of the people in the U.S. are middle. It's not too well off, but it's not so poor. So it's in the middle. So the comparison gap are not so huge.
Yeah. I just learned yesterday. There was I saw 2 women in the same, like just across from each other, and they were picking up bottles to return for change.
Yeah. I've seen that in my area as well.
I was talking to the family through the app. I was talking with them about if there were any services that the government has for specifically older people who can't work, and because in the United States, like, there's plenty of options to get money or start a job, and they don't pay taxes here, so I think that kind of makes a lack of that type of resource for people. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, because it's a communist country. for sure in the past, the government has been providing jobs. That's what I know. In the past, they do provide jobs, training, and even they do pay these people to come to certain city for work. These days, I think the economy has been really changing, and the government perspective and outward looking is quite changing. And I don't know about the system about that, but yeah, I don't think. Yeah, we're still like knowing on the very surface. Foreigner, being a foreigner, that's something. That's the thing that is very lack of not being able to speak the local languages, that we can't really get into in depth of that one. But I told them that I'm trying to. I learned Mandarin back then in university for first semester, but I hated it so much. It was hard, and so I forget everything. But who knows that I'm currently in China, but I can pick up a little bit, just a little bit, tiny bit. I can get around a little bit.
She ordered our food.
They always say.
She ordered it without any problem.
So yeah, it helps a little bit. It helps so much actually, especially people are so curious with foreigners, and yeah, interestingly,
yesterday there was a little girl. She came up to me and she said, "Your eyes are blue and your face is white and red." And she took off my glasses and she looked at my nose.
Yeah, nose especially.
Yeah. She felt my nose and she felt my hair, and especially my hair.
Yeah.
I've only seen 2 other Chinese people with dreadlocks, and it's like, hey, you have dreadlocks! I have dreadlocks! It was awesome.
Oh my god.
But they're very curious.
Yeah, because
very curious.
As in curious, that's why like Chinese people would stare, but in no harm way, because they would be usually curious because they don't see a lot of other different people, right? Most of the time they see only other Chinese people, and so especially in smaller cities like Incheon, so when they see something different, especially her, it's like alien to them, like, oh my god, what is this creature?
Yeah, absolutely. And for the most part, there's only been one occurrence where it wasn't like really positive. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, they're very welcoming for the most part.
Yeah, that's what I say as well. Yeah. So do you have any last message or something that you want to say out there for those of people who are thinking of what is China, how is living in China, or like moving here, visiting here, or anything like that?
You can read about it as much as you want, but unless you come here, you're never really gonna understand how it affects you as a person and how you can grow from it. I think there's a lot of opportunities that this culture presents that you can, anybody can grow from. So, do it. Come here.
We should be hired by the Chinese tourism government or ministry, whatever that is, for promoting China a lot. But thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you again in the next video. It's been very interesting conversation. We should do this a lot more often.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Sure.
Thanks for coming, Dana. Bye.